Joining us now, author of the brand new book, Liberal Privilege, Joe Biden, the Democrats' Defense of the Indefensible, Donald Trump Jr. You know, the reason I wanted to do the Hannity history lesson is because all of the predictions, all the same people, they were all laughing at the idea that your dad was even running, that he can get the nomination, that he could beat 16 other pretty well-known Republicans and then win the general election against the Clintons. Now I'm looking at tonight's crowds and today's crowds, and I'm saying, Donald Trump Jr., I would say there's a lot of enthusiasm for your dad.
Well, it feels pretty good, and it's sort of ironic that those are the same people that out of 150 million American Democrats, Joe Biden, who can't remember where he is 50% of the time, is the best they've got, Sean. It's honestly, it would be sad if it wasn't so scary for our country. What's going on in that campaign, the inability to articulate a thought, the inability to do events 2 days in a row without having to go back into his basement burrow and hide. And I don't mean to make light of cognitive decline, as his stenographer has pointed out, and as so many other people have pointed out. All you have to do is go back and look at a tape of him in the Senate 20 years ago and realize it's not the same guy. I don't mean to make light of that. That's something that everyone, knows someone who's dealing with an issue like that. We're just not necessarily trusting that person with the nuclear codes. We're not trusting that person with our children's and our grandchildren's futures. I mean, that's what the Democrats are doing. That they're doing it because Joe Biden is the perfect camouflage for the mainstream media to push their radical leftist agenda into middle America. They can go to Ohio and Pennsylvania and say, Joe's moderate. Look, it's moderate Joe. But you're not a moderate with his platform. You're not a moderate with the people he's chosen to surround himself with. So it's a big lie. But as to the enthusiasm gap, you're right, Sean. It was incredible. I was at the boat parade yesterday in Florida. It went for 20 miles. Every dock, every restaurant on the water had people, hundreds of them. Just look at my Instagram page. I mean, just cheering and screaming. It's amazing. The Democrats are going to have to play a lot of games to pull the wool over the eyes of the American people with this one, but they will. It's what they're doing. They're not bothering to staff up a ground game. They're not bothering with any of those things. What they're doing is they're staffing up lawyers so they can try to win this thing after Election Day, not on it.
Well, we're going to talk a lot about that in a second here. Hillary Clinton saying, don't concede. Then, of course, the Daily Beast writing, oh, there's a whole resistance if they don't get the result that they want. It's a little scary that this is now the most radical mainstream party ticket in history, Donald Trump Jr.
100%. I mean, I wrote a book about it. It's sort of amazing. Liberal privilege is basically what I did for 4 months during these, government lockdowns where you couldn't go to work, church, or school. Rioting, looting, Sean, no problem. But since I'm not going to riot or loot, I stayed at home. I didn't go to work, and I was able to look at Joe Biden's 50 years of failure. I was able to document all of these things that if Donald Trump did, they would be career-ending. It would be over, whether it's the brain surgeries, whether it's the disastrous trade policies supporting NAFTA, TPP, China's permanent status in the World Trade Organization. Joe Biden, as a politician, has probably done more damage to the American middle class and to American manufacturing than any other person alive. And yet the media will allow him to run to middle America like he's going to be the savior. If he's going to be the savior of anything, Sean, why do you wait 50 years? Why didn't he do this already? That's the reality. When you have a mainstream media that refuses to actually be journalists and just wants to be activists, it creates a problem because all of the things that are Biden's major flaws, they don't even have any interest in. It took someone like me to actually sit there and look at this 50-year track record of failure, whether it's through his positions in government, whether it's through his family, whether it's the graft, the Hunter Biden, the Jim Biden, the brother, and the government contracts to build housing in the Middle East. Minor details. He'd never built a home before.
Okay.
These are things that would be huge news if any conservative
partnering with
did.
the former
But if
Klansman.
Donald Trump did it, it would be over. If I did what Hunter did, I'd be in jail. So liberal privilege, since I get to hear a lot about privilege these days, liberal privilege is the ultimate. It's the ability to be able to flip-flop on every major decision of your life. But again, Joe Biden is the camouflage for the radical left. The media doesn't love Joe Biden. They think he's as incompetent as you and I think he is. They like him because he's the way to get Kamala in there. He's the way to get Bernie and AOC and Rashida Tlaib and the rest of the squad and get their policies in there.
Yeah.
Because those are his policies at this point. He is flip-flopping all all his other policies, all those supposed moderate policies are out the window. He's endorsed the Bernie Sanders Joint Unity Platform. This is a radical leftist agenda, but they can try to sell it to the American people as though it's not. And the radical left loves it. The last 6 months has allowed them to accelerate their disastrous plans for America through lockdowns, through all the disasters we see in the media today. They don't even pretend to be objective anymore. And that's what we're up against, and that's why we have to fight so hard. A guy like me shouldn't be the only person in America writing down what's going on about Biden's history to allow the American people to decide for themselves.
I'm not a potted plant,
so I recommend, if you know someone who's on the fence, who aren't sure, check out Liberal Privilege, because it's all there. And if we had honest journalists, I wouldn't have to do that job. But since we don't,
they're protecting and defending the indefensible. Your book is right. Donald Trump Jr., thank you.